Hey there campers, welcome back to the channel. My name is Mark and I'm going to be talking to you about a Star Wars Unlimited deck that I have been working on, mainly in this sort of like theme of trying to create decks that maybe aren't S tier or A tier or B tier even, but are just fun to play, especially if you have a lot of cards, but maybe your buddies don't have a ton of cards or your friends don't have a ton of cards. You feel like you're just whooping on them with your Vader red deck, or your Vader green deck, whatever you're playing right now. And you're afraid they're just going to stop enjoying the game just because of the investment that you've made in it. But you have a lot of other cards sitting around. You'd like to throw a couple of decks together that might just be fun to play. And this is what I have put together. I put together a Hera deck before. Now, arguably this deck, I have a couple of cards I need to pick up for it, so I will highlight a couple of cards that I think I would put in, and maybe a couple of cards I would get rid of as we're going through this today. But like normal, I'm going to go through each card that's in the deck, ground, space, this time with upgrades, and then also events, and then we'll look at a deck overview as a whole. Really, though, I think this deck is going to be a tremendous amount of fun, and spoiler alert, it's using what is probably my favorite card in the set, which is Force Throw. It's quickly become one of my absolute favorite cards to play with, and so we're going to also make use of Force Throw in this deck. So no further ado, let's go ahead and take a look really quickly at what we're going to be playing with. We're going to be playing red-blue villainy with Grand Inquisitor and Security Complex. Grand Inquisitor, as the action, you exhaust him, deal 2 damage to a friendly unit with 3 or less power, and ready it. And of course, he can flip. He is a 3/6 that flips on 6 that just reads on attack. You may deal 1 damage to another friendly unit with 3 or less power and ready it. Really quite a fun card. And, kind of combo. It lets you get a couple attacks in, basically giving yourself haste by dealing damage. Of course, if you can make that damage benefit you, it gets a lot more powerful. And then Security Complex, going for the 25 health base in this case because we are going to be playing an aggressive strategy. We are going to be trying to push as much damage as fast as possible while simultaneously doing our best to control our opponent's larger threats and prevent them from removing our stuff. And the ability to give a shield token to a non-leader unit is pivotal in that. Let's take a look really quick at what we're going to be using for ground units. In our 2-drop slot, our best turn 1 play is going to be Scout Bike Pursuer. You put this guy down, a 1/4 with grit, you drop him on the board, exhausted, right? And then use the Grand Inquisitor to ready him, dealing 2 damage to him, increasing his attack by 2. Suddenly you've played a 3/2 with haste on turn 1. Very strong turn 1 play to push damage or remove something from your opponent's board. With it, we're also going to be running the Viper Probe Droid, a really good card, and just something that is a staple, absolutely staple right now anyway, in most villainy decks for a turn 1 play. Then I'm going to run 2 Guardian of the Wills. Now, I understand you might not like this card. A 2-resource 2/2 is not very good, but very rarely is your opponent going to remove it in the very first round of the game. And this card can become bonkers by round 2, and I'm going to explain why with some of the other cards in our deck here in a little bit. I'll pull this back out, but the first upgrade that you play on this unit each round costs 1 less, and it does come down with Force as a keyword. I believe the earliest that you can get a Force unit down is Guardian of the Wills. We have 2 of them in this deck for that reason. I'm going to pull one of those aside because I'm going to pull them back in a little bit and give you a better understanding of what cards we're running that synergize well there. The Death Trooper, another just really good self-damage card, can bring him in, deal 2 damage to himself to remove something, or you can do 2 damage to that Scout Bike Pursuer if you did not do it with Grand Inquisitor on turn 1 to be able to remove something. Death Trooper is one of my favorite cards in the game. I think he synergizes pretty well in this scenario. Sometimes you're not going to want to use him and you're going to want to resource him if you feel like, you're just going to have to eliminate something to use it. Sometimes if you have this in hand and you have the Scout Bike Pursuer, you're going to get the Scout Bike Pursuer down and then Death Trooper second. Not use the Grand Inquisitor until turn 2 to be able to ready your Death Trooper. So you actually drop your Scout Bike Pursuer, play your Death Trooper, ping your Scout Bike Pursuer, remove something else, get 3 attack on the Scout Bike Pursuer. Next round, ready your Death Trooper, dealing 2 damage to it. Now you have a 3/2 and a 3/1, you're pushing damage right from round 2. Pretty good there. The next one is no surprise here, Fifth Brother, a 2/4 with Raid 1 for each damage he has on him. So he's not Grit, so it's not as good as Grit, but this guy comes down and swings for 4 on the turn that he comes down. Pretty good. It says on attack, you may deal 1 damage to this unit and 1 damage to another ground unit. So you can get him down, ready him on turn 1, turn 2 when you play him. Attack with him, deal a damage to himself to be able to deal a ping to something else, and you're attacking in for 5 on that turn. Really, 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 really strong in the early game. And then shield him up with the security complex. I think that's one of your best turn 2s there. You play your Scout Bike Pursuer turn 1, damage it, swing the 5th brother on turn 2 as they're dealing with your Scout Bike Pursuer, and get in a bunch of damage with him. That is a lot of damage really early in the game. The next thing we're going to run is Blaze here on our 4-drop. It's a 2/5 with grit. And then whenever you have initiative, he gains Sentinel. And so a big body if you have initiative and you need to slow down the game, but also a guy that you can, of course, throw in, and he's a 4/3 that has Sentinel if you use Grand Inquisitor, and he has, basically haste. He basically comes into play readied. We're going to do this very similar thing with Rugged Survivors. I'm not super fan of this card. I realize that it's good in this deck. I would remove a copy or 2 of this card for duplicates of my next card that I'm going to show you. Just a 3/5 with grit, and on attack, if you control a leader unit, you may draw a card. Of course, you have to get your Grand Inquisitor down on the following turn for this. Okay, yeah, he might work well with Grand Inquisitor. I don't know that he's amazing, but he's okay. The next thing I'm going to show you is the 7th Sister. It's a 5 resource, 3/6 with Saboteur. Of course, Grand Inquisitor can target her, so she can come in, attack straight to the base at a 3/4, and then when she hits the base, she deals 3 damage to a ground unit that your opponent controls. 7th Sister allows you to control the board. Every deck that I've seen with Grand Inquisitor runs 3 of these, and I'm not sure if that's the play or not. I think that 2 is the play, theoretically. 2 Rugged Survivors, 2 7th Sisters, but I could be totally wrong with that. I haven't played this deck quite enough to know if that's the right solution. Let's go through our space units real quick. Not much here is going to surprise you. Inferno 4 is one of my favorite cards in the game. One of the main reasons I like to play Villainy and Vigilance. This lets you correct your draws, gets a good 2-drop in the lane, and this can attack in as a 2/1 on turn 1 with Grand Inquisitor if your opponent isn't playing to the space lane. Next, we're going to play the Imperial Interceptor. Once again, one of my favorite cards in the game. Just allows us to play a 3/2 and remove something from the space lane. Very strong. And then Ruthless Raider, arguably one of the strongest. This is my Grand Inquisitor's Fire Spray in some ways. My 6 resource 4/6 that does something when it hits the board. I think the Ruthless Raider is really strong, helps us push a little bit of damage in the space lane and remove stuff from the board. So that's what this deck's really doing, removing stuff while it's also playing stuff. Now, really quickly, I want to come back to this. Guardian of the Wills, 7th Sister, and 5th Brother all have the Force keyword, which is important for a couple of things. One, I'm going to put Guardian of the Wills back out there because in our upgrades, we're running Resilient. This is a 1 resource upgrade that just gives 3 health. Now, you might not think that's particularly good, but on Guardian of the Wills on turn 1, you play Guardian of the Wills, and then you drop Resilient on it to give it 3 more health. You have a really sticky 2/5. And then the next round, you can drop a Fallen Lightsaber on it, which we're running 2 copies of each of these, attached to a non-vehicle unit. Give it, if it has the Force keyword, on attack, deal 1 damage to each ground unit the defending player controls, and it's a +3/+3. So on round 2, you can reasonably have an 8/5/8 with this, that when it attacks, deals 1 damage to each ground unit that your opponent controls. Just with Guardian of the Wills with Resilient and Fallen Lightsaber. I love this combination. You can now start force throwing as well because you have a force unit out. I think the Resilient, Fallen Lightsaber, Guardian of the Wills combo is worth just playing in this deck, and I think it's super fun if you can get it out. Let's go through our events really quick. We're going to be running 3 copies of Force Throw, of course, lets you discard a card from your opponent's hand, and if you have a force unit, which we likely are going to, you get to deal damage with equal to that card's cost to somebody. It binds all things. This is another card I only have 1 copy of that I think if I had another copy, I would run it. Heal 3 damage from a unit, and then if you control a force unit, you may deal that much damage to another unit. I think this card's excellent. Personally, I really like this card, and I would totally run 2 of these if I had 2 of them. Really good. Once again, that opening that I just showed you with the Guardian of the Wills, I think great. A single copy of Keep Fighting. Just because this gets you ready a unit with 3 or less power, it's just a little bit of surprise damage that maybe your opponent wasn't thinking was coming. It works with Fifth Brother because he doesn't technically have more power because he doesn't have grit, so it's not there all the time. It works with Seventh Sister to get that infiltrate damage in, and you know, it can also theoretically work with your Scout Bike Pursuer. You know, there's a handful of things that this card could work really well with and let you get an extra attack in. It's only a one of because I don't think it's amazing, but I do think it's worth having in there just to throw off your opponent's math with how much damage they think you can do towards the end of a round. We're going to run Force Choke for removal because it costs 1, deals 5. If you have a Force unit out, super good. Once again, guarding the wills turn 1 with Resilient. Throw the right lightsaber on. Then you can Force Choke or Force Throw that turn as well because that Fallen Lightsaber also costs you 1 less. On turn 2, it's only costing you 2. You have an extra resource. You can Force Choke to get rid of something. You can Saber Throw, which you literally have a Saber, which is super, or Force Throw, which is super cool. And then, yeah, it's just not bad. Just a staple, Open Fire. I think this probably won't be a good card in a couple of sets, but right now it's just a staple if you're running red. If you're running Blue Villainy, another just absolute staple in Power of the Dark Side, running 3 copies of that lets you control the board pretty inexpensively. You'll notice there's not a lot of stuff that's expensive in this deck. It's a pretty low floor. Or pretty low ceiling rather, and then take down, defeat a unit with 5 or less remaining HP. Another ability is to kind of take out meddlesome or hard to remove characters like Sabine or something. You can just take down that Kanan, whatever, pull that thing off the battlefield. I think this deck is super fun, and once again, this is probably not going to be like ultra meta, but it's going to catch some people by surprise at your local game shop. Theoretically, it certainly could do that. Let's go ahead and really quickly just pull up the deck list. Let's pull myself down on the left here. You can see the fullness of it here. I'll throw a link for it in the description of this episode too. Let me know what you would change. What would you pull out? Once again, I just don't have the Seventh Sisters. I think I would put in 2 more Seventh Sisters. I think I would pull out 1 copy of Rugged Survivors. I might pull out a Viper Probe Droid too, or I theoretically could pull out like 2 Viper Probe Droids and just put in the 2 Seventh Sisters, leave in the Rugged Survivors for a little bit more top end. We're topping out at 6 in this deck, so once you get to 6, you're not really seeing a lot of reason to resource too much more, especially because, you know, your Force Choke is going to get cheaper, your cards are going to get better if you get those Force units down. I think this is just a really fun deck, and it pairs, I think, pretty cool against my Hera discard Force Throw deck as well. Kind of get the Jedis against the Inquisitors, the Rebel Jedis especially, from Star Wars Rebels against Inquisitors. I think it's super fun. I kind of made these decks to compete against one another. I'm looking forward to grabbing a couple more Seventh Sisters and continuing to check this deck out. Check it out. Let me know what you think about it, and if you make any adjustments or do anything different, let me know in the comments section. Would love to know that. Guys, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for coming by for this deck tech video. Super fun to hang out with you and throw this video together. Hope that you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon if you're enjoying the content that I'm making here on the channel, and let me know if there's another card game you'd like to see me cover, or another deck you'd like to see me put together, or a leader you'd like to see me sort of dabble with and see if I can create a viable good deck with them. I think there's a lot of cool options in Star Wars Unlimited right now, especially if you're not just, you know, making Boba Green or Vader Green or something. I think you can do some really fun stuff out there. Thank you guys for watching and tuning in. Appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video.